Finally, thank you everyone for coming to Door County Reads book discussion here with the Multicultural Book Discussion Group. I want to point out that I have a bunch of programs coming up and there's some flyers on the table. Very soon we'll be having a discussion with actually Wednesday with a local author, Valerie Clarizio. And if you're not familiar with her, she's the finance and director and treasurer for Sturgeon Bay. So the book I read of hers, that her latest book is a mystery, including people in the finance office of Sturgeon Bay. So really? Yeah, it's really fun to read it just because of she really knows what goes on behind the doors, and she sets up a good plot, and then reading about Sturgeon Bay is a lot of fun. So if you want to join us, that's going to also be on Zoom.
It is going to, what day is that?
Wednesday at 4 o'clock.
That's tomorrow.
That's tomorrow.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And then after that, we're going to be doing another episode of the Play Reading Group with Jacob Jansen from do I have someone coming in? Third Avenue Playworks. And we've been having a lot of fun with those discussions. The last one was really fun. I don't know what other term would you use, Jane?
Yeah, I thought too, very interesting
Fascinating,
people.
Yeah. And your husband like you just loved it.
And the next play we're reading is Anna in the Tropics, which happens to be on Hoopla, so it makes it easy for everyone to get a hold of it. But you can also listen to it on Hoopla, which is kind of nice to hear the voices. And that is about a cigar factory where a lectern is hired. It's in the Cuban style to come and read to the group who's working on making cigars, and it happens to read Anna Karenina. So it's an intriguing plot. It won the Pulitzer Prize.
Bruce, having that elbow with your your right hand, and feel a nice little stretch along this lat or tail.
The heck is talking?
Someone online. So then we're going to have Erica Nelson, who's doing a book discussion about her book, or a book talk about her book, Brave Love 365. She's a local counselor. And later on in the year, in April, the community, the mental health people from the county will be leading a book discussion, couple book discussions on a book on mental health at that time. Also, You Are Not Alone. And then what I'm looking forward to, World's Religion Book Study. Houston Smith, one of the oldest, best known writers about comparative literature, and we'll be doing one chapter a month starting in March. But our next multicultural book that we're reading is called The Henna Artist, and I'm excited to say the Saturday before we have the discussion, we have a henna artist coming in to show us how it works, a little about the history, and she will be doing henna on people's hand if you can come in person. So that's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, I went on a trip to India for a wedding, and they had the henna artists and anybody who wanted to do it. The little children walking around with all the, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
It's really an art
really
craft.
beautiful. So I would invite you all to those programs coming up. Today we have the Raft of Stars. I hope you've been able to attend some of the programs we've been having around the county. The kickoff was excellent with Ron Lang talking about his experiences in the outdoors of northern Wisconsin. I mean, he's very experienced and had a lot of good points. Then we had a bunch of book discussions. There were some hikes. Luckily, the weather was excellent. And on Saturday, the author was here and spoke to us. And I hope some of you were able to attend. If not, it's on Facebook Live also, and it will be put up on YouTube fairly soon. And he was a charming young, I call him young, charming man.
Yeah, he looked like he was 14. Yeah. And she was so well prepared.
Yeah, she is a professor at
But I mean, she
WGB.
was so well prepared. She knew just what to ask.
She
I
sure
thought I
was.
talked too much myself and took away from it. And
Oh, really?
There you go.
Absolutely.
Yeah, now we have.
She asked a
two
question,
opinions.
you had a paragraph this big, either at the beginning or end of it, and she kind of. I overheard someone else
Many words.
later that say she was affected, she was affected. I go, what is he talking about? So I looked it up and yes, she was affected. That's when I say, now I'm on TV saying.
That's right. You know, you can have different opinions. Everyone can have different opinions.
Mhm.
And maybe, you know, I think sometimes when you have an interviewer, if the person is a little bit shy or
Sure.
quiet,
So I'm
then it
wondering if
helps.
she requested one.
Yeah, I'm not really sure.
Well, the title was different too. It wasn't an interviewer. They had a new title for that, for what she was. But I
Yeah.
thought it was very academic, which I
Yes.
really like.
Yeah. And he started by reciting a poem and
I
asked.
wish you had written.
Lovely, lovely.
We would have had copies of that.
Well, and it will be on the YouTube video,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
But
So that was kind of fun, and he asked us all to write poems. Has anyone done that? So does this,
the bookmarks with poems too. That was really nice.
yeah, they had a contest
Mhm.
for poems, which was really nice. And so let's jump into this. What do you all think about this book? Anyone have a strong opinion one way or another?
I was a little disappointed because I didn't feel that it was very original. So I kept getting. But
That
then
it was very what?
it wasn't very original. The story wasn't original. It seemed like, okay, 2 kids. Let's go back to Tom Sawyer. I just didn't feel that it was that original. My attention span isn't very good. I get bored very quickly and I read a lot. So if it doesn't hold me, you know, and I persevered, but it's not one I would have picked up for myself.
For me, it didn't seem realistic, so I always have a hard time with something that is set in what seems to be a realistic setting, but people are acting in ways that I have not observed people actually acting, and animals as well.
Well, one of the questions on the official questions is author J. Ryan Straddle, who everyone may know, wrote that Kitchens of the Midwest. So he's a similar sort of writer, called Raft of Stars, an adventure story with a warm heart and a whole town of characters for readers to fall in love with. Who became your favorite character while reading and why? Now, the author said his favorite character was Miranda.
Mhm.
Yeah, because she had a lot of strength, I guess. I personally didn't have a favorite character.
No, me either. I see, and I thought, I really liked the book. And after hearing him speak, he's a real storyteller. And that's how I viewed this book. He was telling a story. And as I said on Saturday, I really think he did a fantastic job of creating those characters and developing them. I felt like I would know every one of those characters, and there was something that intrigued me about each one of them. And I liked the mysticism and the changing of, not knowing exactly that it was reality that was happening. I like all those other components that I can make sense of for myself. So that's why, and I also got that visual picture
Mhm.
because his writing is so descriptive. I really had a sense of being there.
Anyone else have that feeling? Have you spent,
I spent quite a bit of time canoeing and out in nature. I thought it was so real. The nature scenes were so apt and appropriate. I loved that. The ending was a little confusing to me. I thought that was a bit contrived, but up until that point, I was aboard with everything that was happening in there.
Yep,
I raised 2 sons. I saw them attempt to run away once. See, but I think that's something that boys do. They run away from.
I had a problem
Mistakes.
that they were able to make this raft.
Yeah.
I had a problem with that,
I didn't either, because I know a kid that did it.
but he didn't go down a river.
No, he didn't go down the
All
river.
he did was put it there, and he probably didn't float on it very long.
He put the dog
But
on
this
it.
is miles and miles going down
Our
a
sons
rough
could have
river.
made a raft.
Yeah.
Maybe
I
not
think-
age 10.
Well,
Yeah.
I spent a lot of my girlhood trying to make a raft. I was really into it, grew up on the Bay in Oconto, and I was a raft person. But I didn't have roots for twine. And, I thought some of that was, but, once they got the actual ropes,
Yeah.
then it made more sense. But at first I thought, oh, I don't think this is gonna be a thing that works, but yeah, it was, but I liked the boys. I loved it. I thought it was an interesting group of folk.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Mhm.
every one of them.
Yeah.
In the case of the Raft of the child that I saw do it, he did it over a period of 2 years.
Oh,
And what I saw was problem solving. I saw him changing things and then coming back and doing it. And that's what I saw these boys doing too.
Yeah, but they only had how much time did they?
Couple days.
Right.
They whipped it together.
But that didn't bother me.
but the one had read a lot about it. His,
Mhm.
was it Cub Scouting? Or the one had some experience of what the raft should look like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that didn't qualify me so much. It was the cooking of the worms at one point.
Yeah.
The worms and the tobacco.
That was
Pretty
a
sure
lot,
I would starve first. I was thinking
Very
have to.
high protein.
I guess.
I would have thought they would have had a better idea of foods in the area, like we grew up picking berries and all sorts of things in the woods around here. So I don't know. Maybe they're young.
And there's roots that can be edible too,
Mhm.
in the woods. My mother used to do all that stuff. But she was brought up that way. She's
My
the one
favorite
who-
character was the sheriff, who was clearly having a midlife crisis at various levels.
Mhm.
I really liked how he worked out where he thought he wanted to go.
I
Took a
liked all
while.
the characters. I just had problems with some of the things they did, making the map.
Does anyone on Zoom have anything to say? Because just speak up or raise your hand.
I always have something. Well, I thought really interesting, and I haven't watched any of the other discussions yet, so I'm not sure if this was in the questions or if anyone else has brought this up. But the names of the characters and the religious significance. Is that discussed anytime yet?
The author discussed bread and fish.
Mhm.
Bread and fish and on extension on the whole water forgiveness. I mean, the whole I thought the fish and the bread thing was the most obvious, of course.
There's also mention of Ishmael and being cast out.
Yes.
And so there were quite a few biblical references.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Mhm.
Mhm.
One
I
in the
didn't hear
Y
that. They also mentioned
discussion
what?
group did bring up the
Biblical
religion
references.
thing, that they were very surprised that there was so much religion in it, because she thought books didn't really include that very much anymore. And another one from the Y did say that he really wrote realistically about camping. Sometimes they say there are books that are written about camping and we don't know anything about it, but
And his nature, the storm scene.
oh, yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
being stormbound in Canada one time. That was so real as we saw it coming and.
He did leave rafting trips on,
Did he?
um,
On the
in
Peshawar
his
River.
real life. So he has experience with that
Yeah,
quite
he
a bit.
talked about when there's too shallow water, it's
Mhm.
making through the rapids. And
Yeah.
when there's too much water, you're sliding along.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious, did the book need the tornado?
The what?
The book need tornado, the storm. I mean, that was the part that really, oh boy, now we got a tornado,
Yeah. One too many things.
Yeah.
I thought it was 2 books, actually. And I called them the seven lost souls, the 7 people that were troubled, and I did include Mr. Breadman in that, because they all had, well, based on the panel I went to, they all experienced trauma. And so they were all working through that. And then you had the kind of the adventure story of the 2 boys. That could have been a story by itself without the kid having killed himself first, but then that would have been Mark Twain, I guess. But you couldn't really have one without the other, I guess. So you had to take the really good believable writing with the 10-year-olds building a raft kind of thing, and all the things they ran into. Oh my God. I would have rolled over and died probably the first day, you know, the bear.
Did any of you read all the reviews, like New York Times? I looked that up, and then several other ones,
Mhm.
and they all loved it.
Yeah,
But
I was-
several of them did say that you had to kind of look past some of the things, but that the writing was so good and the story was so good that they didn't have any problem with
Right.
looking past
Right.
that.
That happens in a lot of books we read, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think the writing is good, but I don't think he fleshed out his characters. And characters by a good writer are developed on their dialogue and their actions. And I just didn't feel that any of them were believable. Even Bobby, who was the constable who was put in for comic relief. It was very hard. I think Fisher and probably Bread, AKA Dale, the two boys were believable. Not necessarily what they were able to accomplish, but just characters. The others, to me, it was too much of, it was William Kent Kruger-esque and Louise Erdrich-esque, but paled in comparison. I did want to read this book though, because we're 51 year summer residents of Door County. And I love Wisconsin, but this was so different. This was like the UP. I'm not familiar with Wisconsin as he describes it.
Rivers.
I just discovered my technical problem.
Nathan never.
I have to agree with you. The northern Wisconsin is very different from Door County. And we once had a geography professor from the University of Minnesota who his wife has a cottage in Ephraim, and he wrote a book called Door County, My Kind of County. And he at one point wrote a paper comparing northern Wisconsin with Door County. And he makes a lot of the same points you did, Carol, that it is a different environment. So they couldn't do a canoe program. They're doing a kayak program because we have kayak. So that is one big difference in the book. I also think it's interesting. He sets it in the early, 93? So he doesn't have to involve cell phones.
Right, yeah.
And it
But there would be no towers anyway. Now, they could use CBs.
Yeah.
Which is what we use on our island when the cell phones fail and when our towers are not working. Everyone who boats carries a CB.
Even today, you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the kids didn't know that, I guess, but
Yeah.
I just have this feeling that literature is going to go through a very big, I've seen a little bit already, but a big nostalgia trend of things pre-internet, cell phones. I mean, internet's one thing, but cell phones where everybody has one
And we're always looking at them.
makes a big difference
Yeah.
in times. And so they're going to be writing books about people actually talking to each other. In fact, at the end, I have a surprise for you. I had Chat GPT write a poem on northern Wisconsin woods, the way he told us to.
Oh, good for you.
Because we read the book Clara and the Sun here,
Okay.
for anyone who remembers that one.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Talking about the internet, the books are coming back with people looking for a phone booth to make a call. You know,
Yeah.
the way we used to have to find a phone booth, and every gas station had a phone booth, you know,
And you'd wait in line sometimes.
and it's just unbelievable.
But I grew up in
Gone.
Door County, and I have relatives that live in some of the areas that he was talking about. And even as a child, I noticed significant differences
Mhm.
in these two places.
The North
So
Woods.
it's in the north, what they call the North Woods. Even though it's not all that far away, but
Mhm.
there's just a different sense of knowing certain things.
Mhm. Well, it's a different culture too.
It is.
Here. A lot of,
Yeah,
because we have the tourists coming up from St. Louis and Chicago and all of the art community, and up there it's more hunting and fishing, which is what the book is about.
Exactly.
Good point.
So,
And,
yeah,
you know, it was not an environment I personally enjoyed.
the North Wisconsin,
Mhm.
yeah.
It was always mosquito-y, even more so than here. And,
Yeah.
you know, it was like those little rivers. I like the lake.
Yeah.
Mhm.
As opposed to Little Lakes.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Mosquito havens.
But the whole idea is, it was a very different culture than I was used to. And I think that came across in the book. So I didn't have any trouble believing that the kids didn't have cell phones and they didn't have.
Well, that was easy to believe. You just knew what time it took place.
But it was,
Yeah.
that I'm sure had a lot of bearing on how much you like the book. If you read something and you can really relate to it,
Right.
you know.
But
I think
I
that
don't
makes
have
a
any,
difference.
yeah, I didn't
wouldn't
have.
have gotten so bored if they were talking about downtown Chicago,
Okay. Okay, see, I didn't find it boring at all.
How about what?
No,
downtown Chicago.
no.
So you like Devil in the White City?
Yeah, I just, you know, I'm always thinking of, I have a busy life and I keep myself busy.
Mhm.
And I can't, because I, you know, do crafts. And I don't allow myself to do crafts until I've earned the right to
Oh.
sit down to do crafts. So I have all these list of things I have to do before I can, you know, and I walk a lot. And so I have time.
What
for
are
simple
some
things.
of the things you think are chores that you have to do before you allow
Okay,
yourself to do that?
Yeah, that's off the book. That's off the book.
Okay.
But I'm just saying that maybe that's why I lost interest in the book so quickly. Because I'm going, all right, I've read things like this so much before. This isn't. Not,
Oh, because you've read so much. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Oh, took it off.
I think it would make a
Mhm.
difference if I could have related to it a little bit, better,
Mhm.
like what you did.
Right,
You related to it. I couldn't relate.
okay.
Because
Yeah, that makes a huge difference.
camping is a motel without room service. You know,
Right.
I don't do that,
Okay.
you know, because I was born and raised in the city.
Mhm.
But I just, you know, and I looked, and when I get that way, I have a tendency to, okay, if they're gonna tell me what color the leaves are, I'm gonna skip. And then,
Okay.
you know, if I don't think it pertains to the story, I will skip. And I actually I read 1/4 of the book. 'Cause that's the other thing I do, because otherwise I'll read the entire thing and I get up because I'm my own boss. And I will sit there and so I divide up the book in quarters.
Oh,
So I read 1/4 of it and I was so bored, I went to the last
oh.
chapter to see if I would get better and go back and do it. And I'm going, yeah, I'll persevere, but.
See, and I could never read like that because I would miss the nuances. Because he's got a lot of them. I mean, there were some just beautifully written sentences in there that
Oh, yeah.
if you skimmed, you would have missed it and it tied things together.
Yeah, I belong to writers groups. I belong to those groups and I admire really good writing.
Mm-hmm.
But when I can see what's gonna happen next and it's just,
Well, on the other side, it's fun to hear people's reaction, who are, of those who are not familiar with the North Woods. But for those of us who grew up in the North Woods and had similar adventures, built our own rafts, traipsed through the roofs, the woods and cooked outside. I thought it was a really warm, wonderful trip down memory lane. And I wondered if other people would have a problem identifying with all that, but I certainly did, and I thought it was a delightful book.
Well, here's a
Arlene?
comment to that.
Oh, I was just gonna add, Arlene, I think that's your name. Like you, I'm very, very familiar with the North Woods, like north of Wausau, and I could identify very strongly with it. I guess the culture, thinking of what the trees are like, just the whole, what things would smell like. I loved the book and I loved the relationship between the two boys. I thought I've worked with youth over the years, but 10-year-old boys in that time period, it was spot on how they would talk with each other and look out, and then, the next thing you know, they're punching each other, and then they're, making up, and I loved it. And last thing I'll say is, in reading the book and when they're going down the river, about a year or so ago, I got to go out like south of La Crosse. I think it's Wyalusing State Park. If I have that right, I'm not sure. But anyway, right along. Yeah. So it's, alongside the Mississippi, if I'm remembering right, and we were kayaking and we were going in between these lands and water, and it reminded me a lot of in the book with the boys, and they have little islands, and I thought it was very relatable.
It's a beautiful area. That's where my husband grew up.
It is beautiful.
That's where I met my husband too. And obviously, I have had the incredible privilege of 5 times, I think, leading adult groups on canoe trips into Canada. Some as short as 5 days and some as long as 10 or 12 days. What I saw on the trips that I was part of, how people change so much in the course of the journey. They leave behind the crap and the old stuff in their life, and they take on new understanding of where they are. And on every single trip I led, I can think of somebody who was an entirely different man or woman when we got to the end. And I saw that happening to all the characters in this book in just exactly the same or similar ways. So I could relate to this 100%.
I sure hope you didn't have to go through a tornado.
We had,
And the bear.
we had bears, moose right
Okay.
through the camp.
Anyways.
We did have storms, but no tornadoes.
Well, I'm curious about, in the story, when this hooded man comes through the rain and whatever, and I don't know if he hit the boat or not. And then how many of you thought that was Mr. Breadman? Do you all think that was Mr. Breadman?
I didn't have any
I wonder what
freaking-
this idiot was, and then I think I missed something, because when Mr. Breadman shows up to rescue the boys, I didn't even read it that way. I thought he was just out to find fish and get fish.
Mm.
And I totally missed that, and someone in the trauma panel brought that up, and I had to go back and look at that. There was so much going on in that time with the boys and the understanding about how you do the rope with the boys, and they got a little confused
The
about
last chapter, yeah.
Oh, and it's like, I didn't even take notes, and I take a lot of notes. I just read and read and read, and I went, wow. That whole water thing up there with that drop off, but I just thought, well, but Mr. Breadman, what's his name again? I forgot. Fred did turn his gun.
Jack Bridwin.
Breadwin,
Jack.
yeah.
Jack.
He turned his gun on fish. I just reread that in that book. So I never thought that he was really out to save them. Although he did say, I came to get you with the boat because no one else is coming, which was not true, of course.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that was the part that just got so fantastic to me, but it was okay. But I want to relate to the lady up in the corner there. And I don't know why anymore, because I have a very bad short-term memory, but the woman who represented Novel Bay at the discussion that I talked with a little bit, well, I got back up a little bit. My friend said, but there's no young people in this room, for the discussion. And she's 49. And I said, well, you mean high school kids? Maybe we need to get it in the high school more. She says, no. She says, where are the 20 to 30-year-olds? So I asked this lady from Novel Bay, and she said, it's not a book that they would be interested in reading.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
So
But I think they're also working.
They're busy.
I think they still read sometimes.
Yeah, they do. They can.
They're reading.
So many
Colleen
people are
Hoover.
raising kids.
Oh, God.
Don't read.
What'd you say, Laura?
They're all reading Colleen Hoover.
Yeah. I know
That's
that's
phenomenal.
Yeah.
Well, I think or they just have different reading.
Well, I didn't mean to bring that
interests.
topic up. There's lots of stuff in this book to talk about. You must have more questions, Laura. I want to talk about the book. I like talking.
So I'd like to ask, why did Brett's father have to die at the end? I mean, I was hoping for a happy ending, that he would, end up being a good father. And I read it that he was trying to save his son. He was risking his own life to try to save his son.
Yeah, and did the boys have any consequences for playing with guns? That's the thing I kept wondering.
She didn't ask that. Did she answer that?
But yeah, she asked if the father,
Right.
why the father had to die and why could
Right.
he have been
Saved.
saved?
I think that was the only way for the issues between Brett, Dale, and his father to be resolved, was through the father's death, because he was an psychologically extremely disturbed man, extremely abusive to the child, and it was the only way to resolve it. And I don't see his trip as one of saving. I think of the rescue teams, the 4 rescue teams, Cal and Teddy, Miranda and Tiffany, Constable Bobby, and then the 4th one, Jack Bredwin. I don't think his was rescue. I think it was vengeance.
But that's an interesting question you brought up. What are the consequences of the boy?
Yeah, they seem to get off completely in the end, and even though we sympathize with them, they did some things that was over the limit.
Mhm.
you
But
know.
I think it's a different culture.
Yeah.
In that, those kids grow up with guns, they
Yeah.
grow up using it.
Yeah.
And I think.
But not shooting
and-
other people.
No, but what I'm saying is, it's almost like, in a more contemporary fashion, it's like the football players can get away with everything because that's what the parents condone. And it's not the same as shooting someone or using a gun, but
Mhm.
it's like part of that culture, and they don't see that that's such a bad thing.
I just think he thought his friend was gonna die,
Mhm.
and he just.
Oh, I sympathize.
wasn't there.
I
And the
sympathize with it, but
adults
I'm
all
just wondering
thought
what
they
happened
should have done
later.
something before. So there was kind of
Yes.
like that guilt of, well, are we going to punish this kid when we knew what was going on?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Mhm.
Is there something to be said about a small town culture, especially, let's say, back in the 90s? Where and even you would say the same thing about some places in Sturgeon Bay, where when it was small town and everybody knew everybody and grew up together, is that a different culture than when it's more urban? And I think that played a part in it too.
The author supported that in his comments. Yeah.
And it's like the sheriff wanted to go get boys himself. He didn't want to involve,
Right.
because then social services would be involved, et
Mhm.
cetera, et cetera. And I think that's why there are a
Mhm.
couple of reasons why the dad had to die, and one of them is, what do you do with this kid who he and his friend have plotted and plotted? How can we kill this man?
Yeah.
I mean, it
Yeah.
wasn't going to get any better. And also, I think that in certain tellings, that there has to be a sacrifice. And because the bread and the fish and the everything else, I think he was the sacrifice.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Mhm.
I was gonna say, I don't see that the boys were plotting to kill the dad.
Well, they
I
always
think-
thought they were doing it.
Yeah.
Well,
They kind of dreamed about it and they
Yeah.
wished he was
Yeah.
dead from time to time, but I don't think there's any like premeditated plot to do it.
Until.
And you wanted Tiffany to get a brother. Yeah. And you wanted that relationship maybe with the Cal and Tiffany and then this child. Oh, wouldn't that be lovely?
The dog.
Yeah.
And the dog.
Yeah, that was my favorite character, actually, was the dog.
Yeah, the dog was great.
No, I
The dog had personality.
that
too.
was kind of what I hoped for at the end.
Well, here's a question. The novel's point of view is controlled by 3 characters, Fish, Tiffany, and Cal. Why do you think the author chose to follow most closely the hearts and minds of these 3 characters instead of others? What was unique or similar about their emotional journeys?
Well,
I think they were the least damaged,
Yeah, that's a
Oh,
good point.
But they
interesting.
were damaged.
but the least
Yeah.
damaged.
Wait a minute. Tiffany was very damaged.
How is Tiffany damaged? Just being,
Abandoned by her mother.
Yeah.
Oh, they're searching too.
She just didn't know her place.
Was
Yeah,
for
years. Yeah, that was really something.
Somebody's farm.
Anyway, it's just what my mother was in those days, you know, that's a different generation.
I have no experience of knowing evangelistic people. Did it
Mhm.
sense that one moment she was talking in tongues, the next moment she was apparently cursing like a sailor
yeah,
and and just said, well, you don't know any evangelicals. I didn't understand that as a personality type. Or religious.
So that was,
There's our
that
sound
was,
effects.
well, we always said that was his favorite.
Yeah.
Person.
But I think, yeah, he clarified that could have happened. I mean,
Okay.
that could, well, I mean, even when you think in contemporary music, they might be telling a story, and sometimes that happens.
I mean,
That they go from one level to another. You know,
true evangelist, wouldn't.
okay.
Wouldn't
No, my
swear.
dad was a
But she was pretty stressed.
You couldn't even say something similar. You couldn't say doggone it because that meant,
Oh,
you know,
Yeah,
what it meant. So you couldn't even say that.
yeah. If my dad ever said like, oh, what the Sam Hill, we all knew,
Yeah.
oh,
You couldn't say.
but I think she was so frustrated by what was happening. She wanted so much for
Talking about.
the child. Yeah, she wanted to save them, things were getting in her way, and that's just how she expressed it. I mean, I know people who don't use profane language, and then suddenly it's like, all right, out there.
well, and her husband was a military man. so
Yeah,
she
that makes
heard
it, yes, yes.
I just think it wouldn't have been commonplace. It could have been out of frustration,
Right,
but it wouldn't have been
The ultimate
commonplace.
frustration.
yeah, I think that's true.
And maybe in frustration, she would have said doggone it instead of other stuff.
Oh, I don't think
Well, I-
so.
Frank himself did say, oh, my dog, instead of, oh, my.
do you think it would have been written differently if a woman had been the author?
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, what-
Depends on the woman.
Yeah, like, the author himself went to Afghanistan and had that whole experience.
Yeah, but women have been in Afghanistan and women have done
Yeah.
everything that
Yeah.
would have been done in modern day time.
Yeah.
You know,
But then he said he was in the Air Force. So I was thinking like, maybe that wasn't the same as what we view as Afghanistan on TV.
oh, I
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know about
think,
that
yeah.
either. I think,
Well, I don't know. I
think
don't know
that
much
they
about
go down on the
military
ground
things.
a lot, I
Oh, they
think,
do?
yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
and then they
But
could be
they're-
firing from the,
Oh,
And he-
okay.
Yeah, he said he tried to write a book
Right.
about Afghanistan, and it was no
Boring.
good.
Had no
But I
plot.
couldn't, we're not talking about that, but what I couldn't understand was, he went to Iowa Writers, right?
Mhm,
You would
Mhm.
think somewhere along the line, someone would have said, you need more plot
mhm,
for that first book.
mhm.
You
Yeah.
worked on 7 years, and then all the publishers said you had no plot. Somewhere along the line in his education.
He could have added it.
Somebody
Mhm.
would have said,
Yeah,
but you have
Yeah.
readers, people are always reading it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't someone say, the idea is good, but you need more plot or more story?
But I think he realized it didn't have a plot and sort of abandoned the whole thing because he knew
But
that.
7 years, he put 7 years into it.
But I think he resolved the fact that he felt it didn't, and I don't want to develop it anymore.
After they told him.
Right, exactly.
The question of whether it would have been different written by a woman seems to be so old fashioned.
yeah.
I can't believe that in the 2023,
Yeah.
they're even asking, well, wait,
And I'm asking
I
that.
can say I'm they, them. And they have to ask, would this be different if it was written by a woman? Who
No.
asked that?
No, I find that so sexist and
Good for you.
I have that.
I've read too much Deborah Tannen, who writes about the difference between men and women and how they approach language and things.
Interesting.
Well, I mean, it's, yeah. I'm thinking of the Book of Lost Words.
Mhm.
You know, she's picking up all the lost words that the guys threw out
Right.
Yeah,
that they didn't want to put in the dictionary. I mean, and there's that juxtaposition again.
But that's
Yeah, but that was.
that's a century ago.
Right, exactly,
That's
exactly, but it's still, that information's still in my brain.
and
And
there happens to be a new documentary out about
Oh.
women and how they're treated in films.
Mhm.
Now, we're getting off the topic, but
But
We usually do.
yeah.
We've done pretty well.
I think that.
Yeah.
I think that that's way too sexist. It doesn't, it's not relevant today to ask if it was different, if it was a man or a woman, because of the experiences that women go through that a man and a woman have in common, like
Mhm.
going to war and, you know, serving and camping. You know, that she's not sitting there making sure the picnic basket is full while he makes a campfire. It's not that way anymore.
Well, I agree with you in general.
Mhm. But I think he did equally develop the two adult male characters and the two women adult characters too.
Mhm.
And I don't know that that would have been any different had a woman developed those characters. Because I think he had a good understanding of what each
Mhm.
different, you know, depending on what it's about.
There was a place when Tiffany was in the canoe with Cal and Tiffany stopped paddling for, I can't remember why she was upset with something
Yeah.
that Cal did. And I thought that was a really bad portrayal of a woman. It's like, oh, this woman's just being so fussy that she's gonna stop paddling, even though they were in this, you know, dangerous situation. I thought I was really upset with that. So I would
Yeah.
hope that a woman would not write that about another woman.
Oh, a woman might write that.
Well,
Interesting.
also last night I watched David Eagleman, The Brain. I don't know if anyone knows that series, and Who's in Control is part 3. And he talks about how there is a big difference between men and women. So even in the unconscious.
Mhm.
So that's what I'm trying to pull in, that idea. You know, hormones and genetics makes a big difference in how people face things. That's my defense.
I just don't wanna be in a battle with someone, a verbal battle, which I
Mhm.
definitely avoid. And have a man stand there and go, oh, must be her period.
Oh, no.
You know, it must be your hormones. It must be this.
Yeah.
You wanna, you know, that's why my mother advised my husband not to let me own a gun. You know, but I don't see what relevance that would even have of asking that question.
Well,
I really don't have a question. Yeah, go to something else.
I have to say, I was very disappointed when she threw that paddle.
Yeah.
It was like, it kind of killed the feeling, the respect I had for her.
Yeah, I think
that she was
that
competent.
Yeah, it was that was life threatening to do that in that moment.
It indicates she hadn't learned, I thought was, what did she learn in all these 6 or
Right.
7 days they've been out there?
Exactly.
Did
Yeah,
she
she was so
learn
proud of
anything?
herself that she
Did she
done.
learn anything?
Yeah. That was
I
to
think
me
it was a reaction.
misstep.
I'd like to talk about bread and fish, and when they were always planning how to get rid of Brett's dad, whether it was intentional or not. I mean, but I'm thinking about when Brett found out that, you know, all the way along, Brett thinks that Fish's dad is going to save him from his own dad. And then he finds out that Fish's dad is dead.
Mhm.
And then Brett starts thinking about, oh my God, what am I gonna do? He's not alive, he's not gonna save me. And I think there was a lot in there about, well, if my dad's dead and Fish's dad's dead, they're gonna put me in a home. And this whole, I really latched onto that kind of thing about what that fear was there for what's gonna happen to me. And then his dad showed, and then Mr. Brett, I keep calling him Mr. Dale or whatever he is, shows up like, oh boy. Oh boy. So I felt that was very significant. So that battle there, oh, but now what? Now what? And of course he was angry, you know.
Was anybody else as surprised as I was when he showed up at the end?
Oh, my God, are you kidding me?
When he was still in the hospital.
I know, I was thinking, what kind of security do they
Yeah,
have?
and
Why did Miranda insist on going into the hospital to see him when the nurse has said several times, he's not dead, he has survived? I didn't understand why she needed to go in and eyeball him.
I think she wanted to yell at him. Didn't it say that she really gave it to him?
I didn't pick that up. if she
I don't
did.
know. Maybe I
Can't
was,
remember.
maybe I was just.
I think that was the beginning of Miranda's irrational compulsive behavior, which all of this evangelical cloaking she used to suppress her anger for having lost her husband. Because you know the signs of mourning, you know, anger, guilt, so forth. She was very angry, and it came out under great stress on this river trip. And I think the tornado was a metaphor for Miranda's complete flipping out.
Get there, good one.
Yeah, I knew all of you would make me want to actually like the book after.
Oh,
That was a really interesting comment.
Yeah.
Can you imagine a film of this? I can, and what they do with the storm and
yeah,
the rapids and
yeah.
the waterfall and the bear. Oh. What a trip.
Oh, let's talk about the bear,
Yes,
because they asked the author a question about the bear.
at the end.
And at the Y group, we had one lady who said she believed the bear was real. And we're all going, I don't know. But after I left that, I started thinking about the amazing, miraculous things that animals do. And I saw her at the author talk too, and I said, you know, I might be leaning towards your side, that it could have been a real bear. And it was the child who said, this is my dad protecting me. So mysticism, yes, and a little like far out. But that is kind of interesting, you know, that debate. Well, I don't remember what he said. I don't think he directly answered that question, did he?
He said it,
He
it
said it
could
was
be
real.
either, but it was true. It could
was
be
true.
either, but it was true.
Yeah. So I just was thinking more and more about animals and what they're capable. And I'm not an animal lover, nor do I have one, but I read a lot of really interesting stories about animals.
And aren't there pictures of bears swimming over to Washington Island?
Yes.
They do. We see them from the ferry routinely.
Yeah, so
When we had, you remember when we had the wildfires on the west flank of the UP? We'd see bears in the water all the time.
Yes, I've seen him in the water.
Yeah.
I thought maybe the bear, remember he did not shoot the bear when he had the opportunity to do it. I thought, well, there's the bear coming back to thank him and acknowledge his gesture of reprieve.
Animals will do interesting things. This past hunting season on Washington Island and Detroit Island, they had never seen before that as they herded the deer, you know how they hunt, and they forced them to a point, and they got in the water and they swam to the marina on Washington Island. And when they felt the threat was over, they swam back.
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah, when we lived on the Green Bay side of the water, when I lived here before, we would see deer swimming out front.
Yeah.
which- That's kind of
It's
what
spooky to see that. There's on my kayak one day and there's one out there. I didn't know where it was gonna go. I thought, oh, no, this is not good.
and that horse recently went swimming quite a bit.
Yeah.
That escape horse.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh.
Swam across the,
oh, I didn't know that.
Lighthouse. Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah.
Just
Worry.
Got another question?
Horses like to be in the water.
Just like, you know.
In what literal or figurative way does the novel reflect its title, Raft of Stars? What were your expectations when you first read the title, and how were those expectations met or not met? I do like the title.
I know I shouldn't talk anymore, and I wish I would have asked him about this, but I started writing down in the beginning how many times he used the word star. And I got up to 23. I don't know what page it was. Of course, when everything went to HELL, you know, when it was, but stars brightened, blazed with accusation, stars clouded over, field of stars, coyote eye stop, coyote, I don't know what that is, panic in the stars. White pines towered into the stars. Brett's eyes looked all starlit and startled. And I really should have asked him. We know that his mom talked about the Raft of Stars, but I was intrigued with that because they didn't talk about stars for most of the rest of the book.
Yeah. So you were ready for that question.
Wow.
I was ready
I
for the
didn't-
answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that.
No, I didn't either. I just kept thinking it was a beautifully painted picture. Every time the stars came up.
Yeah.
And I thought, and then I started clicking it into the title, but. But prior to just looking at the title, I didn't have any expectations of what it would be like.
So you asked if you like the title or the title fits?
No.
No, she.
It's saying literal or figurative ways. Does the novel reflect the title?
Oh,
Well, when you are on a raft on the water, you're gonna see a lot more stars than you would if you were where there's too much
yeah,
light
I
to see
think
the
they're
stars.
on rather.
And are the boys stars?
Hmm.
There's another one. Stars, stars. Stars,
You know, if you
stars,
think of
stars.
stars
What do
as
they-
persons who see and are bright, maybe it's a raft of boys who
Mhm.
were successful in their learning and their endeavors, misguided as they may have been. I took the boys to be the stars,
Mm.
They sure were successful in
Mhm.
making that raft and,
making a raft,
going that
surviving
far.
in incredible circumstances. And keeping away from those adults who
Mhm.
had
Yeah.
horses and had a better vessel. They had the canoe can move much faster than a raft.
They were highly motivated though, you know, they
Oh,
thought they killed someone,
Mhm.
you know,
And they were heading for rescue.
yeah,
Both the-
yeah. Well, one was, the other one was.
And they didn't know they were being chased, at least
Yeah.
at first.
They didn't know
Yeah,
until
first
very
till I
end.
saw Cal on a horse.
Who didn't pursue, let him go.
Yeah.
I thought maybe we can talk about why Cal, when he saw them,
Mhm.
Didn't just,
didn't just chase after him, turn around and went the other way.
yeah. That's
Was
a
he-
good question.
Was he afraid or reluctant or? He wasn't a very good sheriff if he didn't go after.
Well, he didn't want to be a sheriff
No,
anymore, that's
right.
for sure.
I thought he was reluctant to just.
Was it because they had the gun? I'm not sure. if I
No.
remember.
One of the
think so.
reviews
Oh, but-
that I
but-
read
oh, no, Cal didn't have
mentioned
his gun
that
anymore.
why didn't the sheriff,
The boys.
why did he go
But-
up
but
on
Cal
a
didn't-
horse?
wait a second, there's
Why
two.
didn't he Gather other law people and go
Mhm.
in cars or whatever.
Oh, cars.
Go-
But I don't think it was accessible by cars.
Didn't they say something about it would take longer
Right.
or
Oh, okay.
than to go straight through or something? I remember
Some
something. like that.
review mentioned it.
Well, I'm thinking it was a pretty wilderness and you don't absolutely able to get there by
Right,
car.
Well, maybe the reviewer thought they should take a patrol boat or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, in those days, they
Just
might
to
not.
whip down there and
Right.
head them off before they got anywhere.
Does anyone have any questions that you are interested in bringing up?
Well,
Probably has pages over there.
Yeah, Dorothy is really good at documenting.
Mhm.
Do you think it's a good coming of age story?
Could be a tad misleading.
But it was adult
I think
and the boys.
Brett is gonna end up in social services. He's gonna end up in a foster home. Because now he has nobody.
Oh, I thought he was.
I thought he was
live with
going
the.
to be adopted.
A little brother.
Yeah.
She's gonna be
I
with
know.
Tiffany and Cal.
Tiffany,
Right.
yeah,
They're gonna have their family.
Happily ever after.
but you have to go. through a lot. That doesn't
Yeah.
automatically happen.
But think of the time. There wasn't as much bureaucracy then.
Oh, yes,
either.
oh, yeah.
There was?
Yeah,
Oh.
sure.
Sure, there was.
Yeah.
Probably was.
It depends on the area.
Right, exactly.
The more remote area,
Mhm.
you're more likely to go, oh, you take them, okay.
Mhm. Yeah,
yeah.
we take care of our own.
Yeah. And they knew each other.
Mhm.
It's not like it was an unknown.
In the city.
I liked something on the very first, page maybe. When they were rescuing the turtles.
Yeah.
This was very telling. It really set the tone probably. Turtles and dads weren't supposed to rear up and hiss. They feared snappers like they feared Bread's old man. And then right after that is the phrase, poor damn things. And that fish didn't like how people looked at Bread. And then towards the end there, when page 250, whatever happens there. Fish was not a poor damn thing. Bread was not a poor damn thing. I just thought that was
Coming
a
full
good,
circle.
bridging there, whatever.
Yeah, one of these questions is in the first chapter, Fish overhears his grandfather saying that the boys are strong and good. Why was this so significant for Fish to hear, and how did hearing it affect him later?
And the author talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
You read that.
Oh, did he?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we all need acceptance and somebody that believes in us.
Because he hadn't felt that before.
Right. That would be something he could hang on to.
Mm-hmm.
But
And it
you
was
said
definitely
fish
what I
or
remember
bread
hearing.
in your question.
Well, it says Fish overheard his grandfather,
Right,
so
but I thought it was,
Bread was the one who had the bad father.
Mhm.
yeah. And Fish
Yeah.
just overheard it.
But I think part of it was that he wasn't acknowledging that his dad was dead
Yeah,
either.
Yeah.
And so to hear the father figure in his life essentially validate his life, that would be important too.
so there's a little something missing there, don't you think, when no one's addressing that Fish hasn't addressed the grief that they haven't talked about? I mean, isn't that what it seems like? Because he's saying, my first confusing moment was when Miranda fell to her knees and said, he's not coming home. And he was and I thought, I don't know why I get these ideas. My first reaction was that he had left them.
Oh,
Because I don't think I knew he was in the service then, and then I had to readjust that.
mhm.
Well, I thought Miranda, character wise, I thought I should relate to Miranda more than anybody else. I've been a mother and all of that. But boy, I had trouble with her through the whole book. She to me was just not a real likable person, and she had a good idea, I think, letting Fish stay with his grandfather during the summer.
Mhm.
That was
Yep.
probably a pretty good thing,
Sure.
but she was abdicating her responsibility,
Yeah,
I think, as a
Other
mother.
9 months, right?
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah, I just didn't care for her very much.
Mm.
And
She
I
was-
thought I should.
Well, it is an hour now. Should we wrap it up, or does anyone have anything else to add?
Do you have anything more to add that you know?
I
you
have
think
my artificial
Okay.
Oh,
intelligence.
yes, artificial intelligence.
yeah,
After
yeah,
Clara
yeah.
and the Sun, I've been hearing artificial intelligence all over the place.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It is a hot topic now, isn't it?
Mhm.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, my sister said this poem will never be great because it's too kind of boring. But the title is The North Wisconsin Woods Poem. In North Wisconsin, where the woods abound, nature's beauty can always be found. The tall trees reach for the sky so blue, providing shade for all who pass through. The rustling leaves and chirping birds create a symphony without any words. The scent of pine is in the air, refreshing and clean beyond compare. Wildflowers bloom, a colorful sight, adding to the magic of the night. Beneath the canopy, all is still, peaceful and serene on every hill. The streams that run, clear as crystal glass, reflect the sunbeams as they pass. A tranquil pond with lily pads, a haven for wildlife, nature's gift to add. North Wisconsin woods, a natural delight, a place to wander and bask in its light. Its beauty endures season after season, a true treasure in our hearts for all reason.
Okay, now Laura, now how did you get
Yeah,
that?
that's what I was.
Yeah,
gonna
how
say.
There's
You put clues in?
no, I just wrote write a poem about North Wisconsin woods.
Okay.
And then it pops this out.
Yeah,
It's second.
Google it, or did you?
No, there's, this is a thing that's being developed by a bunch of big tech companies. There's a whole bunch of them. This is Open AI and it's called Chat GPT. They're doing a beta test, trying to make it more naturalistic.
You
Yeah.
heard Carol's?
Yeah, there's a professor at Princeton who broke the code because what's happening or started happening 2 or 3 months ago is undergraduates were turning in high school, mainly undergraduates were turning in papers cranked out by this
AI.
chip thing. And no one could break the code, but there's now a professor at Princeton who's broken the code. And so it'll be widely disseminated so that professors can glean through this and find out if these were artificially prepared by students instead of being their own creative writing. This one gives a lot of clues though, because the rhyme scheme is
Yeah.
too perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the meter is too perfect. The meter and the rhyme scheme.
It's still fun. It's really fun to
Right.
try it and pretty
Yeah.
impressive. And I guess these companies are developing this for multiple reasons, but they're also going to be watermarking things
Okay.
so that you can tell if they've been tampered with down the road.
They
So,
had a thing on the news today
Last
that
night.
that I saw about I think it was a teacher in high school. I don't think it was college level. And she said that she was encouraging her students to do this and then having them talk about what it was instead of saying, okay, this was the product that it came up with. Go ahead and do that and then tell me what you think about that.
Yeah.
Use your
Yeah, she was using it as a teaching tool.
right.
Yeah.
It's not going away.
Right.
No,
Oh, that is
No.
so interesting. Thanks for
Yeah.
doing
it's
that.
almost scary.
Yeah,
To me, it's
it is
scary.
fun.
because I've been reading about artificial intelligence and its writing, but I just had never.
And it just takes a second for it to pop
Right,
out,
right.
that's the thing that
Is that
amazes
Well,
me.
yeah.
Yeah. So you can have it do all sorts of
AI.
things. Some subjects it doesn't know, so then it will tell you that it doesn't know, but they say it as it goes through more and more use, it builds its knowledge.
See,
There you go.
knowing you a bit.
Yeah.
I perceive the poem not to be what you personally perceive, but rather generic.
Mhm.
It seemed,
It is generic.
That's what I mean,
it
that's,
seemed like it was done by an adult. It seemed almost too sing-songy and.
I thought the rhyming was
Oh,
amazing.
yeah. I'm not
right,
saying
but
that.
it almost
No,
seems,
I was
but
thinking like.
knowing Laura, it just seems generic.
Oh, yeah, Robert Frost.
Well, I told Jared Santek about it and he said, we're all, ruined or whatever. But I think on the other hand, it'll make the real authors sharper
Mhm.
and work harder.
I think in education, you just have to embrace things that are new and adapt them to how you can use them appropriately.
Yeah, don't fight it. Go with.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's my ending.
Very
Thank
nice.
you, Laura.